It's time for Recipe of the Day. Usually when I buy some kind of white fish, like fish fillets, my plan is to bread them and pan fry them or do something nice and crispy with them. That's what I usually plan to do. But then quite often I end up faced with that nice fresh fish in my fridge after an exhausting day, and I just don't feel like doing a breading. I don't feel like any of that. And so that is when I just do a simple baked fish fillet. It is not as good. I'm honest with you here. It is not as good as when you make a nice breading and pan fry it so it's all crispy with like some tartar sauce when you have the time to do all that. It is definitely not as good as that, but I think I've made this as good as I possibly can while just having this very minimal fuss in the oven kind of dish. So the recipe is actually for baked haddock, but you can use cod, tilapia, or halibut. And I will link to my post about the different kinds of white fish that there are so that you can see what other kinds might work or what to be looking for. Now, the reason I think this recipe works so well is that we're just putting tons of flavor on there. So while it's a simple baked fish, which some people might think is just kind of like soft and not special, there are a lot of flavors and that makes up for it. So if your fish has skin on it, I would recommend that you remove it first, but you can leave it on and sort of eat it off of the skin later. It's not going to get crispy in this preparation. I will link to my crispy salmon skin recipe though, so that you can do that if that is what you want to have, is some nice crispy fish skin. That is possible. That is not what you're going to get from this recipe though. Okay, you're going to start by preheating your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit and line a baking sheet with aluminum foil. This is a lazy day recipe, so we want as little cleanup as possible. The aluminum foil is going to help, right? Okay, then you're going to take your fish fillets and you're going to put them on the baking sheet that you lined with aluminum foil. If your fillets have skin on them, do them skin side down. Then melt 2 tablespoons of butter and mix that with 2 tablespoons of finely chopped onion. You can put a little garlic in there too if you want, and mix that up and pour that over the fish. See, we're getting tons of great flavor here. Butter, onion, maybe garlic, and then sprinkle that all lightly with salt and pepper. Now, you are baking that until the fish is cooked through and flaking apart easily. Technically, fish is supposed to be at 145 degrees Fahrenheit to be safe, but if your fish fillet is thin, it can be hard to get the thermometer in there to really assess that. So then you're just cutting into it to make sure that it is flaky and opaque throughout. A good rule of thumb is 10 minutes per inch. And in my experience, it's like a minimum of 10 minutes. So if you have like 3/4 of an inch or half of an inch, like a little skinny fillet, it's still going to need about 10 minutes in that oven to heat up and then cook through. And then once it is cooked through, you take it out and you sprinkle it with chopped fresh dill and arrange some fresh lemon slices on top. That is amazing. The other thing that you can do, and this is one of my favorites, is while it's cooking in the oven, toast up some panko breadcrumbs. You can do this just in a skillet. You add a little bit of oil or butter to the skillet, add some panko breadcrumbs, season them if you want, and you just stir and cook them over low heat until they're starting to brown or starting to kind of get evenly brown. As soon as any start to get a little bit darker, quickly scoop them out of the skillet, because if they start to brown and you leave them in the skillet, even if you take the skillet off the heat, they will start to like get overly done and then get kind of bitter. So you're just toasting them a little bit, and then you sprinkle those on top of the fish just before serving it. That gets you that crunch that we're not getting from doing the breading and pan frying, right? And then I will say that another thing that always makes fish extra delicious is to serve it with a delicious sauce. Now you can do a homemade tartar sauce or a store-bought tartar sauce. I'll link to my homemade recipe. I know I've told you about this before. This is the one that uses dill relish, so not regular green relish, but the dill relish. It is so good, like game changing in your tartar sauce. I will link to that. Or it's also just really good with some cocktail sauce. I'll link to my recipe for that. But like buying some or quickly mixing together some ketchup with some horseradish sauce, that is going to be just a nice little zing for this dish. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.